Welcome to the Wander Mode podcast, where we celebrate the fearless spirit of women embracing life's wanderings. Where every story is a spark of inspiration and reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful moments happen when we simply embrace wherever the journey may lead. On today's episode, we are talking to a powerhouse woman whose life is packed with experiences that we all can honestly learn from. Karina Pacific is a real estate expert, entrepreneur, and skincare enthusiast who has built an impressive career across multiple industries. From navigating the ups and downs of entrepreneurship to balancing her personal life, Karina has gained a wealth of wisdom along the way. Get ready for an inspiring conversation full of practical advice, real life stories, and insights that can help you on your own journey, no matter where it is that you are. I had a really hard time when I was sending you some guiding questions, really honing in on which part of your story I wanted to hear. But let's go ahead and start with this. Where are you at just in your headspace today?
Today, I am in a bit of a rebirth, and this is kind of like my second rebirth, but I feel like it's coming out of a whole new womb per se. And it partially because I divorced 2 years ago and I'm 52, so I'm going through menopause, and health has become I take health and sleep very serious, and what that does to my everyday, or every day we're bombarded with stuff. You have a to-do list and you don't get it done because things come in. So like making sure the nervous system is healthy. So that's where I'm at, just trying to rebirth. What do I need? Removing stuff from my life and people that do not contribute or not at the same level, and all of it. I mean, we women try to do it all. So yeah, so that's kind of the mindset, like a rebirth and adding and subtracting and working and launching a new business as well.
Holy moly, which is why I had such a hard time pinning down my questions. So let's give everybody a little bit of context then. Let's go back to your first rebirth. What age was that at, and what was happening in your life that caused that rebirth to occur? And maybe tell a little bit about how it was that you came out of it.
Oh my God. So I tried to make it short and sweet, but that was probably 23 to 25 years old. Literally, I came down on my knees. I was jogging in Lake Hollywood, down of Barham and Hollywood Hills, like Burbank area, the Valley of LA, Los Angeles. I was to go run around Lake Hollywood, and I was jogging. All of a sudden, I just got emotionally and physically tired. I got on my hands and knees. I said, God, I need help. I'm lost. Like literally. And it'd been like 20 something years of just life taking me down. Life was really from birth to 12. I was born and raised in Mexico, particularly parentless. I didn't have a father. My mother was just not your traditional mother. She was more of a keeper. We didn't really have a relationship. She just kind of fed me, clothed me, but she was not like a motherly mother. And I was sort of pawned around at people's houses and raised by myself, fended for myself. But I learned a lot by watching how people did their family thing. And just I was very much a visual learner and curious. So that taught me a lot. I came to America in 85. And by the grace of God, I was able to stay in America. I was supposed to have been sent back. And then my mother was supposed to send money. Like by a miracle of God, I was allowed to stay in America with the family she worked with. And it was an all-American, affluent family in Houston. So that was a huge culture shock, language shock, socioeconomic shock. And I was just mute. I was just trying to now listen to the language, the culture. That was my first time that I had a family meal with this wonderful family, and passed the sugar, and people conversed with one another, because I didn't have a family, and I did not have the most traditional Mexican family. It was a very sort of cliquish family per se. So that was interesting and fun too. And then I was 12, so I was hormonal, I was tween. And even though my mother was not able to be there, just when I got my period in Houston, Texas, She sent me like to a bathroom with a stranger to help me. She didn't know what to do. So I was just sort of raised by people. So we came to Los Angeles. We hopped around everywhere in LA, East LA, Studio City, Sherman Oaks. We eventually landed in Los Feliz where I went to high school. And around 14 to high school years, I realized that if I've seen what America is, like it's still the land of dreams. I still believe it's the only country where we can reinvent ourselves over and over again. We have opportunities. So I saw that and I said, if I'm going to go higher than where I'm at and be more than my mother, I need to leave her because she's not equipped. And she did the best she could, but she had tapped out and I had outgrown her. So a week or two after high school, I had saved money because I worked 2-3 jobs during high school, and I just left her and I just became this little vagabond through Los Angeles. Like I did Airbnb before Airbnb, like borrow people's couches, people's rooms, hopped on the bus. So then I had a boyfriend during high school, 16 to 19 years old. He was a cheater and liar. From 19 to 21, I had another boyfriend. He was a cheater, liar, and I added to the menu an alcoholic. And then 21 to 23, he was a little bit like bipolar personality, kind of something before we could name it back in the day. It was not very common to kind of have the mental health dialogue. So he was very off. So my nervous system was always wired up to kind of try and figure out what was going to walk in the door. So that was at the 121, 22, 23. That's when I was exhausted. All of that life just kind of came crashing down and I just dropped down like I need help. I literally, yeah.
When you dropped down onto your knees and you were crying for help, who were you crying to? Are you a spiritual person, a religious person? Were you just putting it out there into the universe, hoping that somebody or something would answer?
Yeah, I mean, being born, raised in Mexico, like Catholicism is fed to you like rice and beans. It's just part of your life. It's part of the plate. And I did spend a lot of time in a church. I did go to a Catholic church for some years, and I would be in church a lot alone with the priest and the nuns, and they became really good guardians for me. And that is the only time that I learned discipline. You kind of quiet down, you respect the priest and you respect the nun. And it taught me meditation, but not right away, because you sit there and you're in quiet, and I learned to be okay in silence. The one thing I never bought and I never still done is gone and done confession. Like, what little girl is going to go into this dark room with this stranger and tell me what to do? He's never been married. Like that, I never bought into that. And that's the common sense of a child, right?
Yes.
Like they're very smart, our little ones. So thankfully I listened to my little younger child wisdom. So yes, God became really my father because I didn't have a father. And Mother Mary, like the love of Mother Mary and Jesus, I call him like my brother from another mother. So yes. And then, now I become more spiritual. Now I have the spirit guides and angels. I always feel like I've been surrounded by angels because I've been through some gnarly stuff where I feel like there's no way I would have survived this if I didn't have guardianship above. And so, yeah, it's just more broad. So I was praying to God, please help me. And I had not been going to church a lot. I was just roaming around LA, partying and doing all that stuff. So, yeah.
Right. So what was the answer when you called out? Who came to help? What was the shift?
The shift was a miracle. I started to realize that I love hiking in nature, and I started hiking around, some of the hikes in Los Angeles. And I found I'm a believer, like healing through nature is very important. Just put your feet on the ground, go by trees, touch the earth. But I always do hiking a lot. One of the hikes I came down, I was in Burbank. I came down the hill, and I said, I need like a legitimate room for rent now. I can't be like hopping around. Like I need something where I can pay a monthly bill, So I went to the local little liquor store, picked up a little newspaper for like the rooms for rent, that kind of thing in the back of the newspaper. And I found a room for rent in Burbank, and I called it. I went to look at it. And when I knocked on the door, this gal opened the door, and it's just gorgeous. This gorgeous girl, her name is Maria, with curly hair, and like she's very expressive. And she looked at me and she hugged me, and it was the most nurturing, most loving hug I had to that day. Like I've never been hugged that way. It was just loving and kind, and it was like we both found each other. She's a very affectionate person. I didn't grow up with that, so I thought like, oh my God, what if she likes girls?
No.
But she ended up being my best friend, my daughter's godmother. That's how I met my ex-husband. She changed my life. She brought God back to me, and I kind of reunited with God. And she is an actress, so she has the art of communication. She taught me how to communicate because nobody really communicated with me when I was little. Nobody exchanged, what do you like? Or nobody had a conversation really with me. She taught me about it's okay to agree to disagree. And it's okay if we don't agree. Like, wouldn't that be nice nowadays?
Yeah, that needs to get brought back around. It
I
really
should take
does.
it back to it. I know. So I didn't know that. I didn't know how to argue and then still love each other at the end. She taught me a lot. She taught me just kind of be raw. And to that point, nobody really had held me accountable because I wasn't parented. I was just kind of fending for myself. She taught me how to create boundaries with others and with myself, which was a very new territory because I just wasn't taught anything because I would overstep boundaries because I didn't know what boundaries were. And she would react and I would be like, oh my God, I pissed her off, and actually being accountable for having upset somebody you care about. So she's been a great teacher. And everybody that she brought along through her circle, big character personalities, a lot of East Coasters. I love East Coasters because, they're raw and honest and blunt, but love, like you can hug it out at the end.
It's kind of an all-in mentality. Yeah, you're going to do everything with 110%, effort behind it.
Exactly.
It's so interesting that you mentioned the word accountability several times. And I think oftentimes when we think of teenagers or even people who are in their early 20s, they want their freedom and they want to be out and doing their own thing. And like, they don't want to be accountable to anybody and they want to be the ones to set the rules. And it's interesting to hear you tell your story because when you're never held accountable or you're never taught those things as a kid, for you, it was the exact opposite. It almost created what I would imagine a very unnerving or like ungrounding life, like that
Mhm.
nobody really expected anything of you. So then kind of, why am I here type of thing? Would that
Mhm.
be accurate?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it was a lot of just spending for self, just kind of roaming around, and there was no rules. There was no expectations of me. I was just sort of floating through life, and she was doing the best she could. But as far as being protected, encouraged, talked to, held accountable, I mean, I knew that I needed to clean my room or the basic stuff, but like just social skills, nothing. So when she came in my life, which was great, that's when kind of my first rebirth happened. And after having gotten that room for rent, that was the era of self-development era. Remember Gloria Steinem? I walked into a bookstore in Burbank and there was a big table board in the middle, self-development. Like, what is this? And the first book I picked up was Marianne Williamson, A Woman's Worth. And
Okay.
that book was so influential to me. It was like it was speaking the voice of a woman, the voice of what we go through is still kind of very to this day. It's almost like we haven't really moved as far as
Yeah.
where women is, in this world. So from there, I just continued reading books, therapy, a lot of healing through nature, and just different light modalities, and just started opening up that onion of like, okay, I can change. I can change myself. I can upgrade. I don't have to get stuck with what I was born with. It doesn't define me. I knew I was better then. There was magic in there. And so I just started unraveling the onion and just doing a lot of healing because ultimately I knew I wanted to be married at some point and I knew I wanted to be a mother. Innately, I knew I was going to be a good mother. But I said I need to do some things before then. So that was my first sort of rebirth.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you did all that work prior to going into motherhood because that was going to be one of my questions is how do you feel like your life growing up impacted your journey to being a mom? But it sounds like you did a lot of work going into it. So you're probably in a much better place had you not done that. But did you see any aspects or have to fight any aspects of your childhood as a mom, even though you did all that work?
I wanted to mother her according to her needs at that particular age, in that particular time and culture. So it was very like you can't parent a kid the same way across the way. Like they change, they evolve, and then culturally you have to adapt with the culture. So I knew I wanted to raise her according to her needs and not my lack of. But everything that I was giving her, how I was mothering her, was definitely my lack of because I was not parented or mothered. You know what I mean? So I tried to sort of individualize it for her while knowing that I was kind of also parenting myself because I wasn't, but I was still also like trying to keep it her experience. You know what I mean?
There's that fine line between being who we are and letting that help navigate us as moms, but having who we are not necessarily become who our kid is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But she told me, I mean, my daughter here, she told me who she was very early. Maybe when she started walking really well, I would take her to the parks. And the first time I remember vividly, I put her down, and it was winter. She was looked really cute, and went to the little sand thing, and there was a little train thing with a kid in there, and I put her down. I just watched her, and she walked over there and went to make the boy okay, and just kind of sit with him and play with the wheel, and then he felt better, and then she kept on like roaming around, and like, oh, this chick is gonna be all right. She's independent, she's not shy, and she's gonna be a little social butterfly, and she was. So I just kind of parented, just I kind of followed her without telling her what to do. I mean, surely you kind of go over safety and that kind of stuff. But yeah, my ex-husband and I, we always were good parents together, thankfully. And we always let her tell us what she needed. And we just try to not get in her way, even though every so often we do, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, no parent is perfect.
Yes.
We do it the best that we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know one of the statements that you had said, I can't remember if it was on social media or where I heard you say it, but you just said your approach to parenting is according to the needs of each child rather than through the lens of past trauma. That's kind of what you mean, is observing your kid, gaining a deep understanding of who they are,
Yeah.
and then trying to see that through a different lens than sometimes the lens that clouds our own view of life.
Exactly. Yeah. Even as something as simple as my mother would not let me have sleepovers, yet I was sexually abused. So, and I just thought, well, that went out the window. I think that she wanted to keep me safe, but that still happened, because that can happen anytime, unfortunately. It happens all the time. And I did not follow that rule of not letting her have sleepovers. Like, she needs to have her childhood, and that goes with sleepovers and having little friends, and just making sure that, you know the parent as much as possible, and who's in that house, and having faith that she will be okay. But I did not want to shortchange her from those experiences, because that's how I was parented.
Yeah, I feel like the no sleepover thing has come back around more generationally. Like, I think people that have younger ones, because I know my daughter's 3.5 right now.
Yeah.
And it's very much the norm to not do the sleepover
Interesting.
thing again. So it's kind of like, it's kind of gone full circle, you know?
I mean, we do have an epidemic of child abuse, and it seems like we are among them. Human trafficking is at a disgustingly high number. Any number is high. So yeah, we do have to be diligent about the kiddos. I just knew that I wanted to give her that experience, and I just deeply trusted that she'd be okay. And every parent has to kind of do their thing.
Yeah, you have to ultimately trust the decisions that you decide to make, and be willing to have it play out however it's going to end up playing out. So tell me, how is it parenting with your ex-husband? Because you hear oftentimes in situations of divorce and raising kids that things can get very heated, and it becomes a battle. The kid becomes the battleground, basically, right? So how were you and your ex-husband able to navigate that? And like, what are some strategies that you used to have it be focused more on, we may not be right for each other anymore, but we can still be right for our daughter?
We were together 23 years, and we divorced 2 years ago. The first year, that was tough. That was tough, and we were both angry and in deep pain. And I tried not to badmouth him, and I know that he did. And then I would just, obviously, I would say, like, we have to just keep this in peace, not bring her into it. Thankfully, she does do therapy, and that has saved her a lot. It was tough. It was tough to bite your tongue, but now we are in a good dialogue, good relationship. We just helped her with her birthday party together with all her friends. But there's boundaries. I'm back to boundaries. Like, I have to keep a good boundary, make sure that I don't get emotionally involved or melancholy or those feelings, with somebody, that person for a quarter of a century. And I adore him, and we adore each other. Just doesn't mean that we were meant to be together. So it just takes a lot of self-compassion, compassion for the other person. He's not evil. We're good people just trying to figure it out. And if we can just look at it with compassion and love, we can maybe bring down that anger. But I think in the first year, and I think it's very common, I hear the first year or so is tough. I'm not dealing with a narcissist. I wasn't dealing with a control freak. I wasn't dealing with that kind of egocentric personality. It was just more really hurt feelings. So it just depends who you're dealing with.
And then, as you pointed out, giving it that time to heal, I think some of the reason why the first year after anything, whether it's a divorce or you've left a job that you loved or you have some other big transition, you're in a new relationship, that first year is always a little tumultuous, with anything, because it's always going to be high emotions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to navigate where you're sitting with those before you can really do anything that allows the situation to be functional after that.
I think I got lucky, even though it got a little tense for a little while, and friendships break up, the extended friendship, the couples around you break up, and people get hurt because they sided with one or the other. That's tough, but relatively I got lucky, particularly as far as support, financial support, and divvying up stuff. It was pretty simple. I have a girlfriend that is being dragged around for 2-3 years, and the ex-husband to be, is a controlling kind of personality, and he kind of runs the numbers, and like she has no idea if he's hiding anything, what she's gonna get, like if she's gonna go back to work. Like she's kind of in limbo, and what that's cost to her health wise is just, I feel awful for her. So I can't imagine. So I'm very lucky, and I send a lot of compassion and love to anybody that's going through that in a tougher way than I went through.
Let's go back to the boundaries thing. What do you feel you've learned about boundaries with people? Like with your mom, you decided we need to go our own separate ways. You still obviously carry on a relationship that looks different, but it's still with your ex-husband. What have you learned about setting those boundaries, and how you know when it's time to truly let someone go and have them not be part of your life versus like it's okay for them to be a part still of my life, even if it looks a little different?
I get little bings. I get like uncomfortable. I want to get out of that. I'm like, we're not in sync. Like there's something, or the women intuition, that women feeling, that if you're kind of introspective or you kind of in awareness, you feel that sense of like, this doesn't feel right. This is not aligned with me. We're not on the same page. I'm compromised. I can't get this time back. I always say to myself, I can't get this time back. And I take time very serious now. I want to give it to people that are in line, they're loving, they're kind. We don't have to agree on everything, but we are good people, and they are in the business of growth just as much as I am in the business of growth. If they're stale, like they're kind of over things, like I think I'm not aligned with. So I just start slowly removing myself, and eventually it just goes away.
So it's that deep down feeling that as long as it sticks around, you probably recognize, okay, I need to make a different decision here. And then once it's gone, that uncomfortable feeling, then you're kind of like, okay, I know that I've made the right call.
Yes, it always feels right.
Yeah.
Like, are they depleting you or are they adding to you?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we do need to give to others, but not at the expense of compromising your own values or your own energy. Just be very energetically in tune to see, are you being drained by this person all the time? Look at the trends. Patterns matter. And it's like, are they complainers all the time? And they're in personal growth. Are they willing to make a change? Or just like really pay attention to that, because people can drag us down. But it's come to me, like I've removed friendships. My circle has gotten smaller. The more we grow, have you noticed? The more you grow and you thrive, the smaller the circle gets, right?
Yes. So why is that? I don't know. Any
I don't
ideas?
know. I mean, if you are in the business or like you care for yourself enough to invest for yourself, then that means you're growing, right? And you're kind of like, okay, this doesn't work. Let me try this other modality. Let me try this other thing, workout, or this other, whatever it is, because you're growing. So your mind expands, your universe expands, and you're kind of encapsulated in your growth. If people are not there with you, you feel it even more. It feels almost, you're almost allergic to it. I feel like when people like are constantly negative, complaining about life, I feel like I have an allergy attack. Like I get anxiety a little bit because it's so out of my realm of life consciousness. So then the circle gets smaller. Like I don't want to spend time with them. I don't know if that answered your question. How do you feel about it?
I completely agree with you. Like, as you were sitting there talking about them, I almost feel like rather than them not accepting the new you, it's rather that you outgrew them.
Yes,
Like
yes,
that,
yeah.
that even your mind opening up to new possibilities and other things awakened this sense that you didn't necessarily need to hold on to things that don't serve a purpose anymore.
Right. And
Yeah.
some people, there's that saying, some people come for a reason or a season. I've known women, men that come in my life. I've learned from them all. On the positive side, if we can come out of those relationships having learned something, then it's a win. Just make sure it doesn't steal too much of your time, because we can't get time back.
Yeah. At what age do you think that you really started to pay attention to time and value time more? Because I'm 41 and I feel like I'm just starting to think more about time.
Yeah.
And I don't really recall thinking about time that much prior. And you mentioned it now a few times, and I'm kind of like, oh, I wonder, like, is that just a normal thing? You cross into your 40s or 50s and you're more aware that a lot of your life, 40 years, 50 years of your life is behind you now.
Right. Well, I'm 52 this next month, but I really, over the last 2 years, to actually answer your question, because there's been a drastic coming of friendships and then come out of friendships. And I'm like, well, that was 20 years, 15 years with these individuals, and they're no longer in my life. And I really invested in them, and I can't get that back. I invested a lot on these people. And I think that's where that started. So now when I go out with girlfriends, I really pay attention to the dialogue we have. And if we're together, am I at peace with what the time we're spending together? Am I bored, for lack of better words? Or would I rather be on my couch reading, thing?
Yeah,
That
that's probably a pretty bad sign.
yeah, I mean, are we kind of feeding each other? And there's times where you just have fun. You
Yeah.
just gotta have a blast and laugh. But I really take count of a lot of my day, because every day we're being bombarded with stuff. I feel like, I had a full day of to-do list, and my daughter comes like, I need this and this and this. And like, that took like 2 hours.
That's even from the time that they're toddlers. That feels like something that never really goes away, is that kids just don't fully understand like how much time things are going to take.
Yeah. And we
Yes.
women, and you're taking care of the household and your husband and the business. There's just a lot.
Yes.
So whatever time we give out to others, it should mean something.
So tell me a little bit about where you're investing your time now. So you said that you're starting this new business
Yeah.
and you very much have this new rebirth on your mind. So what does that look like for you right now?
So my first love is skincare
Okay.
and wellness, just mindset. I call myself a pill popper. I love supplements for the body. I work out, but I love skincare, facials, all those tools, lotions and potions, like bring it. And I'm a good esthetician. 14 years ago, I got into real estate and did short-term rentals back in the day, with like 3-4 years. Like there was a gentleman here that started a short-term rental business before it was so busy with that market. And he kind of commands that market here in the South Bay by the beach cities. We started that together, and I learned a lot, and it was very fruitful, except that it took me away from real estate because we were so busy with contracts and tending to those rentals that I thought, oh my God, I've been doing this 3-4 years, but I haven't really nurtured my real estate life. So then I went to more real estate, which I do luxury here in Los Angeles. But when my daughter came back from college, and even the year before, my friends kept on saying, what should I use for my skin? What are you using now? And what kind of facial should I get? So that conversation started again. And she came back from college. She's like, can you give me a facial? Can you wax me? Can you do this? So like I was waxing her. And so I started paying attention to that. My friends were saying, what I should use? I don't want to give it some thought. So I would touch her skin and kind of look at it. What are you eating? What are you doing? So I started sort of creating a little bit of momentum there and trying to grow it, and then creating a website where it'll have a lot of blogging. It's nothing new, but it's more from a woman that's 52 years old that's going back to it, dealing with the hormones because that affects her skin. My age, I'm 52, and I refuse to use Botox. I don't want to put Botox, and kind of doing a little bit more cleaner lifestyle to upkeep with the inevitable.
How would you say that skincare has changed from prior to menopause to now? Are there specific products that you're needing to use now? Because I feel like sometimes we hear the word menopause and it's just like, oh, we're going to go through all these things. But
Yeah.
sometimes people don't often think about, well, yeah, now that means that I need to change my skincare routine or the makeup that I'm wearing, or now I might need to give up dairy or whatever
Yeah.
the thing is.
Well, you touched on it. Like a lot of it is diet. The reason why I got into skincare back in my 20s is because I had like total pizza face. Like I had pustules and like broken out, like when you see really red, and I couldn't really get under control over it. And it really turned out a lot of it was dairy. And a lot of my friends' daughters who were going to college or just finishing high school, it was the traditional sort of here and some here. And I said, how much dairy are you having? And the moment they stop, I said, just please give it a try. Just particularly don't do it during your period or the week before your period. No dairy, very clean, fibrous, no white starches, that kind of stuff. And they see a change right away and they feel better. And one of the gals, she's like, my skin is glowing, and they get so happy, and she's young. So diet is a big deal. And I just got the ring. I just treated myself for my birthday. The Aura ring.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
have it?
I've heard about that.
Okay, so because I take a lot of pride on my sleep, I feel like I love a good 8, 9 hours of sleep. I think it's important. Like we need that, and that's how your body renews itself, rejuvenates itself. So I thought I was getting 8, 9 hours. I put the ring on, and the first night I wake up 7 hours. Next 7.5 hours. Like even though we think we're sleeping, the REM, the deep sleep, light sleep, like I'm not getting as much sleep as I thought. I'm really distraught by this. But it's important. So when you ask where's your mindset now, it's like, okay, I gotta get this. Is important. Our body needs this. So that all has to do with our skin as well, right? If it's not resting, it's going to show in our skin.
Right.
But yeah, the products change. It just depends. I do virtual consultations. So it's like put out in front what you're using. What is your lifestyle? So I can suggest things that you're going to follow. Are you a minimalist or are you playing with it? You like more stuff and create a little schedule. It depends on where you live, the season, if it's dry or it's humid, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's way more complex. I am not a complicated person. Like, I'm definitely a minimalist when it comes to skincare routine, if it even exists at all for me. And so it's really interesting to hear you talk about even changing things by the season, because being in Minnesota, we have very extreme seasons. We experience them all, from today where it's so humid that it feels like it's over 100 degrees, even though it's 80.
Yeah.
And, and then in the wintertime, it could be 35 below. So that's really, really interesting. And so you're able to do virtual consultations with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are some of the things that you look for virtually? I mean, do they have to get real close to the camera or take like up close
And
pictures?
you have like your face clean. And then I would just ask all kinds of questions as far as like, what do you do in the morning? How does your skin feel in the morning? Because that means, are you underdoing or overdoing at night? Just exfoliation. What kind of cleanser are you using? Is it gel? Is it milky? Is it oil? I just kind of see everything they use and curate something that they're going to follow through with. And then what's important is your weekly self-care little mini facials. I do a little scrub, leave it on, and then just kind of let it soak in some of the dead skin, and then put a little mask after. Remove it, put a mask, and walk around with a mask while you're doing laundry, while you're folding on dishwashers. Or I have an LED light, one that you can just kind of prop open. I just walk around with this mask on. It's like the LED light's so great for stimulate collagen, cell renewal, tighten the skin. So definitely the home maintenance, like your mini facials, are so important, particularly if you're not getting facials. It's like exercising. You got to exercise 2-3 times a week to continue that metabolism, to lengthen muscle build. Same thing with the face. It's a lot of work, but it's important. It's more like do it for you, so you feel good about taking care of you, and it pays off, and then you do it more.
Do you feel like you're having to fight a lot being in this industry against the more artificial means of looking young? Or do you feel like we're swinging back around as a culture to real beauty, right? Like real aging? Yes, there are things that we can do to slow the aging, but that we're letting ourselves age naturally.
Yes, we're going there. And the conversation of menopause is really much more abundant out there. And there's a lot more that needs to be done, because not a lot of studies have been done for women for our health, which is ridiculous. We've been given medications that are tested on men, which there's no comparison. There's no comparison. So the dialogue of menopause and that we're beautiful no matter what age. Women are letting their hair gray now. Some women look fantastic with gray hair, more natural products. Yes, I love that the conversation is starting there, while taking care of ourselves. I live in the South Bay, where it's kind of like a beach version of Beverly Hills, where there's a lot of Botox, there's a lot of fillers, there's a lot of midi spas, and I get it, but it's just that stuff is going to catch up with us. It's just not natural. It's foreign. Do your homework with your own products. I'm happy to help, and don't get bombarded by TikTok and Instagram and all those things that try to sell us stuff. It's tough because we are being bombarded with, we are the biggest consumer in that industry, and they're doing it to the detriment of getting in our heads.
Are there any particular brands that you stand behind that you like as just an overall good brand or product?
Oh gosh, I think I'm throwing a blank because there's so many. More the cleaner products. There's one that called Fortuna that I really like. The base is olive oil, made in Italy, but it is a little more costly. There's stuff like Acute, Sonia the Car is one of my favorite ones, the organic line. I pick and choose and just kind of create, because one line doesn't fit all, and you got to just sort of mix and match it a little bit.
Oh,
Oh,
amazing. I'm learning a lot just from the short conversation. So, where can people find you if they wanted to get a hold of you to work from a skincare perspective? Or are you very much still totally balancing real estate and doing very little with the skincare? Or are you trying to transition?
I'm actually doing both, which is, we women could do so many things.
Oh,
I got
yeah.
clients in real estate that they're coming back to the table. But no, I'm building the website. It's going to be called Kismet K. Kismet meaning what it's meant to be is meant to be. It's almost like a miracle or just magic. In K, my first initial. But they can just email me. I'm very passionate about it, guiding women or men. My ex-husband still uses the routine I gave him. Like, men do follow their routine and they want to do the right thing.
Very good. I'll be sure to include links to all your things. And once your website's up, we can go back and add it to the show notes. But it was such a pleasure chatting with you today and hearing your story.
Oh, I appreciate you so much for taking the time.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for wandering with me today. If you were inspired by this episode and think it would ignite a spark in a friend, don't hesitate to share. And if you're craving more from the Wander Mode community, hop on over to Instagram at WanderModeCo. Meet you in the next episode, and until then, wander on.